Here's a load more free and cheap great space games. Now, I wanted to release this video as a follow-up to the previous one, as it seems a few of you have missed out on the recent Steam sale entirely. But that doesn't mean you have to miss out on some great games, as GOG also currently has a sale on, and this will be available until the 3rd of April. Before we get into those sale titles though, let's start with an amazing free space game. Diaspora Shattered Armistice. Now, this is a fan-made, free-of-charge space game. It's based on the Free Space 2 engine and is set in the reimagined Battlestar Galactica universe. Now, this game is quite old at this point, in fact 10 years, maybe more, but the quality of it is second to none. It really is a very good space combat game, especially for the price of zero. Now, the narrative centers around the Cylon surprise attack against the 12 colonies, with the player serving as a pilot aboard the Battlestar Theseus, a ship of fan creation, distinct yet inspired by elements from the series' iconic vessels. And yes, this also means you get the chance to pilot those great Vipers. Now, the game unfolds through 6 combat missions, and these are complemented by tutorials that introduce players to its flight systems and combat mechanics. And this involves dogfights, strategic defense, and challenging AI. Now, personally, I'm an absolutely massive fan of Battlestar Galactica, both the original series as well as the reimagined series, and there's nothing quite like the Vipers, both the classic ones and the Mark IIs, and these really are some of my favourite ships in all of science fiction. So it's great to really dive in and to be able to play with these, and it's quite a shame really that there's not really been any other Battlestar Galactica games. But that said, Diaspora really is a high quality cinematic experience. It really does feel as though you're in some of the great combat sequences within the TV series, and you'll have all those really well-known sound effects in there to boot. So yeah, like I said, the game is pretty old and the graphics are aging a little bit, but it still really does have that Battlestar Galactica vibe, and it really does sell it very well. The game then can be picked up for free through the link in the video description. Now, moving on to the sales over on the GOG website. Objects in Space is a distinctive space simulation that merges elements of stealth, sandbox exploration, and intricate ship management within a deeply developed universe filled with danger. Now, this game is quite different to many other space games out there. It's quite unique, in fact, and it's set nearly half a century after humanity's colonization of the Apollo star cluster. Here, players are thrust into a world rich with history, political strife, and a tapestry of empires and factions vying for dominance. The core gameplay revolves around the player acting as the captain of their ship, assuming multiple roles such as pilot, engineer, and tactician. The game emphasizes stealth and strategic avoidance of conflict, encouraging players to manage their ship's emissions and systems carefully to navigate through the dangers of space unnoticed. And this includes turning off non-essential systems to conserve power and remain undetected by potential threats such as pirates and law enforcement. Navigation and exploration are key in this game, with players plotting courses, utilizing autopilot for long journeys, and making strategic decisions to avoid hazards and enemies. And the game's interface is notably immersive, although in some ways it does look like quite a throwback to a different era of games, but this really does work in Objects in Space favour. In short then, this isn't the type of game that you'll got with Diaspora, previously mentioned. It's not that type of action-packed combat game. Instead, it really is about managing your ship out there in the depth of space, with all the dangers that come along with that solitary environment. This then is very much a space simulation game. Currently over on GOG, it's priced at just £3.89. That's an 80% discount, down from nearly £20, so well worth checking out. Sticking with the theme of the solitary experience in space, this one may remind you of HAL 9000 in 2001. The game is called Observation, and it's a single-player sci-fi thriller game where players inhabit the role of Sam, an artificial intelligence aboard the space station Observation. Yes, you're completely operational and all your circuits are functioning perfectly. Or are they? The game then gives a rather unique perspective on interaction and storytelling, as everything you view is through the station's cameras from the perspective of the AI. So the game unfolds on a space station that has inexplicably drifted near Saturn, with Dr. Emma Fisher as the sole apparent survivor among the crew. And as you take on the role of the station's AI, it's your job to help Dr. Fisher in solving puzzles and assisting them to uncover the mystery behind the station's current predicament, as well as the fate of its crew. Now, gameplay is heavily centered around using the station's systems and interfaces for interactions. That means operating doors, analyzing schematics, and navigating through both the internal and external environments of the station using cameras and drone spheres. The narrative is certainly very much layered here. It's a combination of elements of intrigue and discovery with themes of AI consciousness and human-tech relationships. At any rate, the station's design, inspired by the real International Space Station, along with detailed visuals, atmospheric sound design, and convincing voice acting, which is actually very nice, really does put the player into a believable and compelling space environment. So whilst the story is certainly not about action and combat, it really is about puzzles, yet these maintain engaging and atmospheric storytelling, and of course there's the exploration to boot as well. So if you like deep themes in your sci-fi stories, then Observation is definitely one to go for. This is something that we don't see too much of in current days. Again, Observation is pretty cheap, currently at just £4.89, down from nearly £20. Now, if you prefer more of a traditional space game with trading, smuggling, mining, and all that other lovely stuff as you fly around in your spaceships, then the game to look out for could well be Rebel Galaxy Outlaws. This is a single-player action game, and here players step into the shoes of Juno Markev, and this is very much an old-school space sim. So the gameplay encompasses a variety of activities, as mentioned, that includes bounty hunting, piracy, trading, as well as mining, and also allowing players to choose their path to upgrading their ship. Now, combat involves strategic management of power between weapons, shields and engines, although, to be perfectly honest, I found the combat a little bit straightforward, as you can kind of lock on to the enemy ships and auto-chase them. So yeah, a little bit straightforward, not quite as action-packed as something like Elite Dangerous, but still, nonetheless, it is very nice. There's a detailed ship painter tool here that really does enable some great customization of vessels, and well, pretty much you can paint on anything you like. So whilst this isn't as deep as some of the online space games out there, it really is a very nice streamlined space sim. What's more, in addition to your ships, you also get the ability to leave your ship and walk around inside space stations, and there's plenty of activities to go on out there. Yeah, this is a game which will probably occupy quite a bit of your time. This is another game that's steeply discounted at just £3.59, down from nearly £24. Heading back into the depths of space, we come to Chorus, and this is a single-player space combat game with some very high-paced arcade-style dogfighting. Now, you may remember I made a video on this some years back, and I wasn't especially enamoured with it, but that said, a lot of people did like it, and for that reason, I did want to include it in here. So the player takes on the role of a pilot of a sentient starfighter called Forsaken. The gameplay in Chorus is focused on dynamic space combat, special abilities known as rights, and these rights include the ability to drift in zero gravity, teleport behind foes, and disable enemy ships. So all of this really adds some flavour to the overall combat experience. Exploration also is a pretty significant focus in the game, as the game does have an open world design which allows players to traverse new star systems, and each of these presents a new unique environment and various different challenges. And that means you can expect to fly through ice fields and even dodge through space station-styled cities. The game does have a very heavy focus on narrative, and this is interwoven in the game via cutscenes. In essence then, Chorus really is a blend of space combat along with that strong narrative. The game is currently priced at £5.49, down from £22. Now, if you prefer your activities in space to be a little bit more away from piloting spaceships and rather into, hard physical labour, then Hardspace Shipbreaker is well worth a look at. It's a single-player simulation game developed by Blackbird Interactive, and it's set in a future where players assume the role of a shipbreaker dismantling a derelict spacecraft. And this, unsurprisingly, can be very, very dangerous, as you have to manage risks like explosive decompression, fuel fires, and reactor meltdowns. So in the game, you literally do get to break apart ships, and it's actually got some very impressive physics going on here. The gameplay itself involves sorting ships into parts as you break them down. Some of these could be recycled, other parts need to be disposed of completely. The more efficient you are with the process, the more money you'll actually earn. Now, there is a narrative here, and it really does explore an underlying theme of worker exploitation, corporate control, and the push for unionization. Ultimately, the story is all about you paying off your debt to the corporation, and you're not allowed to go anywhere until you do that. Indentured servitude, more or less. This one is the most expensive game in this video. It's priced at £12, but that is down from £30, so quite a discount there. Next up, we have Journey to the Savage Planet. Now this game, I guess, is less about spaceships, although you do travel around on a spaceship, kind of. It's a lot more like Outer Worlds. Well, actually, I say that it's really a completely different game to Outer Worlds. This isn't an RPG, but in the sense of walking around on planets and the activities you might do on board your spaceship, it's probably closer in relationship to Outer Worlds than any other space game. At any rate, the gameplay involves analysing flora and fauna down on the Savage Planet, collecting materials to craft items and weapons, dealing with enemies and overcoming the platforming challenges across 4 different biomes. So all of that essentially means you can expect a load of first-person shooting, a bunch of exploration, as well as some platforming elements. The game also has a very distinctive and quite unique sense of humour that harkens back to Outer Worlds again. And it also includes teleportation points for easier traversal across the open world map, so that means you won't have to constantly run back and forth. The story itself unfolds mostly within the player's spaceship, through missions, emails and video messages from the player's boss, and this really does highlight again the game's humorous tone. Now this one's a little bit more expensive than the other games so far discussed. It's £7.49, so still relatively cheap, and that's down from nearly £25 I do believe. So thank you for watching all the way to the end, and if you are still here, why not check out one of the other videos on the screen right here. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.